Hey guys, Argent here. So this is going to be a difficult topic, as most theological topics are, and this is kind of an introduction to a mini-series I'm going to do called Better Know a Heresy, where I'm going to look at various heresies, mainly of the Christological nature, throughout history. Just give you little 5 to 10 minute videos, a bit on the history, a bit on why it's a heresy, a bit on what it is. I thought it would be kind of a fun way to get some videos done and go over some doctrine. So as an introduction, and because I had other reasons for making this video, we're going to talk about Christology today. And you're like, what the heck is that? Well, Christology is, well, kind of what it sounds like. It is the study of Christ. Generally speaking, though, well, Christ being Christ and ology being the study of. So pretty straightforward. That being said, the term Christology normally is used in the context of high versus low Christology. High Christology is anything that emphasizes Jesus as God, Jesus' divine characteristics, etc. And low Christology is anything that emphasizes Jesus' human characteristics and tends to almost shy away from Christ's divinity. It de-emphasizes that in favor of human suffering. Human suffering and his human aspects. So obviously there are extremes in both ends. There's the monophysites on one side, and then there's the adoptionists on the other, both of which are wrong. But in general, I find today the overwhelming number of Christians, or people who claim to be Christian, have a low Christology. I know the church I was raised in basically taught adoptionism, which I'll get into in my video on adoptionism. But basically, it's the idea that Jesus was just some random guy who became the Messiah, that he's not a part of the Trinity, really. Or he became a part of the Trinity at a later date. So there's basically tritheism, or binetheism, I guess would be the term for having two gods. So, high and low Christology looks a bit like this. You have the people over here, this should really be reversed, but whatever, who say that emphasize Jesus' human nature. And extreme forms of low Christology state that Jesus is human but not fully divine. So Arianism is the idea that Jesus is a lesser God. It's a bit similar to the Jehovah's Witnesses' idea that Jesus is not God, but he's Saint Michael the Archangel taken human flesh. So he's not God. He might be much greater than a human, but he's not the creator of the universe. Then we have Arian. Then we have adoptionism, which, as I said, was just the idea that he's some random guy. I find most low church Protestants tend to be adoptionist or Arian. I know from my experience, I was so surrounded by low Christology people. No one had ever said that Christians considered Jesus was God until I only found that out when I was about 21. Despite kind of being, because most of the people I was around were either evangelical Christians or liberal Protestants who are all extremely low Christology. So they always were like, oh, Jesus was this man, he had this, he taught really nice things. They don't really believe in the sacraments, or that he died for our sins, or in anything supernatural. So no one ever stated the most basic part of Christian theology, that God took on flesh and then died for his creation. So I actually never knew it, and I thought they were just worshipping some Randy that they found in the desert. And I find that's a very common conception. I've talked to other people online who in their teens rejected Christianity for a similar reason, because they thought it was a form of idolatry. I know that's how Muslims view Christians, that they're just kind of worshipping some random guy. So I find, generally speaking, in low Christology today in particular, you have people who will not really, they'll say, well, the miracles, they probably didn't happen. Jesus didn't perform the miracles. They're just kind of like metaphorical. He was just some random guy. Like the loaves and fishes, that was all about sharing, and sharing is caring. And Jesus was just this really friendly guy who brought us lessons. And it's like, okay. Well, here's my thing about the miracles. I mean, if you accept that he's God, why are the miracles a fucking issue? I mean, if someone can make the world in 7 days, and I know they're not literal periods of time. Okay, let me rephrase it. If someone can make the universe, what is so hard to buy about creating a couple fish out of thin air? If anything, that just seems like some parlor trick compared to creating the heavens and the earth. But no, they really seem to have a problem with these miracles, and they have such a problem with them. Even if they don't explicitly state it, I get the impression their Christology is so low they practice adoptionism. They don't consider Jesus God. There's some who have said, "Oh, Jesus didn't rise from the dead; he was just pretending to be dead, etc." And some of these people will still call themselves Christian. Like, I don't get it. I mean, if you think he's God, what's the issue? He created the universe. He created life. I don't see what's so hard to buy that he took human form and then died and rose from the dead. To me, that's like, if you buy that he's God, then that other stuff you can just kind of take for granted. I mean, it's not that, it's nowhere near. I mean, I could picture some like random demon or some human with like supernatural powers doing the stuff Jesus did. It just never has been that big an issue for me. But no, they'll say they're so low Christology. They basically say Jesus was some random guy. Even if they acknowledge he's God, they'll say, well, he didn't really there wasn't anything supernatural about him, despite him being the creator of the universe. So I kind of feel if you deny miracles, if you start just denying parts of Jesus' life because they seem implausible, that tends to mean that, to me at least, that you're an adoptionist. Or you're not even an adoptionist, you're like a completely secular Christian who just thinks Jesus was a philosopher. Because I literally don't understand how you could have an issue with miracles if you think Jesus is God. So I maintain liberal Protestantism is adoptionist. They reject the idea that Jesus is God. So they're in a sense they're effectively Unitarian, but they're very poorly Catholic. Conservative Protestants, like evangelicals, who de-emphasize scholarship because they just think everyone should read the Bible and they have no idea about any theology. But they're very similar actually to liberal Protestants. They may be conservative on social issues, but they also don't really believe in scholarship or that theology or doctrine matter. So they very often, I find, will also be adoptionist. They may oppose abortion and gay marriage, but they're theologically indistinguishable from liberal Protestants, etc. And yeah, so we have that. Then we have the other end, which I've spent less time on because it's not as common. We are seeing a reemergence of this in the form of Gnosticism. Now, people don't really understand what Gnosticism is. Dan Brown has no clue what Gnosticism is. I'll do a video on Gnosticism, but basically it's the idea that matter is evil and spirit is good. So they tend to hold to so Gnosticism is a Christian heresy that emphasizes Jesus' humanity while rejecting, emphasizes his divinity while rejecting his humanity. So, as opposed to thinking that Jesus is fully human and fully divine, they say, well, he's not fully human, he's just fully divine. And in Gnosticism, some variants of it will say that Jesus' body was an illusion. That he was like an angel. An angel is a being with a soul and spirit but doesn't have a physical body. It can take on physical form, but it's different from like a human's body. It's it just doesn't work the same. They don't have blood. They don't have flesh. They might be able to form a physical presence, but it's kind of like a ghost, or a poltergeist or something. more sophisticated. But you kind of get what I'm saying. It's spiritual or energy or whatever you want to call it. So they say that from Jesus, and that's also called Docetism.